Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025 at 7 p.m., and I am calling to order this regular meeting of the Lakewood Planning Commission. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Buckley?
Here.
Commissioner Grepliunas? Commissioner Holman?
Here.
Commissioner Molinar?
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill?
Here.
Commissioner Overall?
Here.
Commissioner Williams?
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. And Mr. Clerk, will you please read into the record the first agenda item for tonight?
That'll be item 3, case number PL 25-0003, 3 Mile Plan.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're happy that you are all joining us. Oftentimes at Planning Commission meetings, we toil in obscurity. That is especially the case when we partake in the usually annual ritual of updating the 3 Mile Plan, which is required by state statute. This is a plan that staff will come forward and present soon, which in essence describes what happens if an application for annexation into Lakewood were to be submitted. At the moment, it is my understanding, there are no currently pending applications for annexation, and Lakewood is not, by considering this plan tonight, trying to annex any land adjacent to or within an enclave in the city, but rather is merely fulfilling its duty to abide by state law and annually update this plan. I will invite staff forward for the presentation to begin sharing more information about that, and then we will have an opportunity for public comment for anyone who wishes to speak. I believe there usually is a sign-up sheet in the back if you do not see that coming in, and if you did not see it and would wish to speak, I will be asking anyone to raise their hand to speak after the staff presentation. So with that, Mr. Rice.
Megan Wakefield, planner with Sustainability and Community Development, will present the staff report for you.
Thank you. All right, good evening, Ms. Wakefield.
Yes, hello, good evening. Ready? All right. Hello, Commissioners. My name is Megan Wakefield, and I am an Associate Planner on the Development Review Team within the Department of Sustainability and Community Development here at the City of Lakewood. This presentation is for the November 19th, 2025 Planning Commission regular meeting to consider, discuss, and vote on case PL 25-0003, the 3 Mile Plan. And so, as Commissioner Buckley stated, tonight, the request is just for a Planning Commission to adopt the 3 Mile Plan and recommend its approval to City Council. Staff's request is not to annex any property. So what is a 3 Mile Plan? It's a long-range plan required by the state of Colorado in which municipalities describe how they would ensure adequate provision of services within any annexable territory while still providing adequate services to the remainder of the existing municipality should the municipality choose to pursue an annexation of such territory. And again, at this time, Lakewood does not intend to annex any property. Colorado revised statutes restrict annexation of an incorporated municipality that will result in any extension to that municipal boundary by more than 3 miles in any direction at any point in a single year. Eligible annexable land includes unincorporated Jefferson County land within this 3 mile boundary. For the 3 Mile Plan, the municipality is subject to detailing adequate provision of services and plans for utilities, infrastructure, public services, character, and land use for all eligible annexable land. This is accomplished by referencing applicable comprehensive and citywide plans for the City of Lakewood, as well as applicable Jefferson County plans. The map shown is included in the proposed 2025 3 Mile Plan. It shows the municipal boundary of the City of Lakewood, shown in blue, as well as other regional jurisdictional boundaries, shown in yellow. The 3 mile annexable area that extends beyond the boundaries of Lakewood is shown in red, and the annexable enclaves within the municipal boundary of Lakewood are striped red. The 3 Mile Plan references any independent and applicable land use plans which indicate how requirements are met in addressing utility, infrastructure, public services, area character, and land use. Shown on this slide is a graphic representation of the reference plans in the 3 Mile Plan. For all areas, the Lakewood Comprehensive Plan is our primary document considered when reviewing land uses associated with proposed annexations. The Jefferson County Comprehensive Area Plans shall be incorporated and used as a secondary resource for annexation guidance. As shown on the map, these area plans would be applicable to petition into the city of Lakewood from the west, south, north, and northwest areas. Since the last 3 Mile Plan, there have been quite a few plan updates. So Jefferson County updated their bicycle plan in June of 2022 and their transportation and mobility plan in September of 2025. The city of Lakewood approved the Envision Lakewood 2040 comprehensive plan in July of 2025, the Lakewood bicycle plan in June of 2025, the Connect, Discover, Create Lakewood Public Art Plan in March of 2025, the Bear Creek Lake Park Master Plan in January of 2025, and the 40 West Art Line Design Standards Guidelines, the 40 West Art Line Framework Plan, and the Strategic Housing Plan, all in February of 2024. So, pursuant to the requirements set forth in the Colorado Revised Statutes, staff recommends that the Lakewood Planning Commission adopt and recommend to City Council the approval of the 2025 3 Mile Plan, case PL 25-0003. That concludes my presentation for the 3 Mile Plan. Staff will be available for questions. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Wakefield, I do have some questions to begin, so you can stay right there. And just, I'm wondering if you can elaborate slightly more on the requirements of state statute for the timeline of how frequently we must adopt a 3 Mile Plan and the reasons why the state requires it so frequently.
It is required on an annual, to be updated on an annual basis, and that's so that the plan is in place before any municipality goes through the process of like a petition for annexation.
Right. And so this plan, in essence, is required to be in place for every city in the state, precisely because it's possible that an annexation petition could come along. And if that happens, there's basic questions like, well, how will the services be provided by the new city, and how will that impact the existing residents of the city and the residents to be annexed, and what kind of guiding documents and plan would influence the decision-making process in that annexation. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Great. Do any other commissioners have questions? Commissioner Overall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, what is the difference between last year's plan and this year's plan?
So, well, the most recent plan that we have, or that the city of Lakewood has, is actually from 2023. A plan was not completed or, updated last year. As you saw on one of the slides, I mean, the city of Lakewood updated multiple plans in 2024 as well as 2025. And so just based on all of those updates that were coming around, like just kind of in a similar time frame, we wanted to kind of get those out of the way and then do the update now so that we wouldn't, have an updated 3 Mile Plan and then like immediately it's out of date.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and just a follow-up question on that, I guess, is, the state law does say that a city must update this plan annually. We didn't last year. We were busy with lots of other planning processes. Mm-hmm. Does anything happen to us as a result of the slap on the wrist? And I don't know, could that have any practical effects?
I'll answer.
Ms. Stanek, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Chair. So there's no practical effects. There were no annexation petitions brought forward last year. Ms. Wakefield has very eloquently already stated that part of the reason why we didn't bring one in 2024 was just because of the other city plans that we were updating. There was a concern that if we brought the 3 Mile Plan, we were going to have to bring it twice in 1 year, and so there's no consequential effect as of right now for 2024 because there were no plans and nobody petitioned to annex into Lakewood, and the city didn't bring any of its own annexation petitions, so there's no consequence.
Okay, that's good to know. But we should get back into the process of doing this on an annual cycle because the statute requires it, essentially.
That's correct. Yeah, they say that at least annually, and so we plan on doing that going forward. The concern, as Ms. Wakefield alluded to already, is that if the city does not have a 3-mile plan in place and there is an annexation petition brought either by property owners or by the city, that could be challenged in court.
Okay. And Ms. Stanek, you may be the best person for this question too, or perhaps someone else on staff. Can you generally describe what are the processes? I understand there's no annexation petitions right now by any private property owner or private group of citizens or by the city itself, but what are the processes how there could be an annexation petition, and what has to happen for land to actually be annexed?
Okay. So it's pretty extensive. So it depends on the property itself. Is it an enclave where it's otherwise surrounded by the city already? Is it something where it is on the outskirts of the city? Is it a petition the city is bringing forward? So there have been numerous times where the city has acquired property, and once we've acquired that property, we'll move to annex it. There's also times, I guess a good example is out by the Colorado Mills Mall, where we've had property owners themselves ask to annex into the city, and we've done that. The Mills Mall area, I think there was 23 different annexations done to ultimately get that whole space annexed into Lakewood over the period of 20 some odd years. So it can come in different forms. There's a lot of, the statutory requirements are really strict and they're extensive. So there's the Municipal Annexation Act, I believe it's 1965 is what dictates how this works. And the process is pretty rigorous because some petitions, if there's multiple owners, there are annexation elections. If there are single owners, there's still an application process that has to be followed and procedures the city has to follow to ensure that it's done correctly. So suffice it to say that for either the city to bring an annexation petition or a property owner to bring an annexation petition, it takes months and a lot of steps before that happens.
All right, that's all great to know. We have a lot of lights here from questions from other commissioners, so I will start with Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify something on that, what you just shared of in an event where there are multiple property owners, there's typically an election. I just want to make sure that we understand this because there were several comments on Lakewood Speaks concerned about there not being an election, and I recognize we've already established that tonight we're voting on the annual adoption of the plan, which we're legally required to do by state law. But can you describe for us what would require an election, and also if there were multiple properties that were to be annexed, would that require an election for the people who live there?
Yes. So what we've typically seen, at least in most recent past, the last 10 years, is that we're usually talking about property owners, and it's usually one or two owners or an ownership group that are actually asking the city to annex into the city. So we're not going out and necessarily doing like a land grab or saying, we want you to be in the city. The other forms we've seen is when the city's acquired property and we are just trying to bring that into the city. And so let's say that there was there's differences again when we're talking about, again, the enclaves versus others, but let's say there was an area that the city was interested in annexing, or some of the property owners were interested in annexing. They would have to provide notification to every single individual in the annexed area, and then there would have to be an election. I can't recall right now what percentage of those property owners have to vote to be annexed, but it is a significant percentage have to vote to be formally annexed into the city. So again, the annexations that we've done, again, in the last 10 years, are really either the city owns a property, we're the sole owner, we're trying to annex that property into the city, and it's usually adjacent in the city, or it might even be within the city's boundaries, but it's just never been annexed, or a property owner, or small property ownership group is asking, like the middle small area, is asking to be annexed into the city.
All right, Commissioner Overall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I apologize, we got a little sidetracked on the update date, but my question is are there changes to the map, or are there substantive changes in this 2025 plan?
Megan, can you pull up the plan? So the map change from the 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper was probably not noticeable, But the shape could have shifted since 2023. If, Megan, can you highlight the area out at Denver West we just highlighted? No, that down south, right? Okay.
Oh, like over here.
Yeah. So that was the Stevenson annexation. One of the reasons we didn't update the 3 Mile Plan in 2024, we had anticipated that was going to wrap up earlier, and it took to the end of 2024. So technically, that land area added probably shifted the boundary a little bit to the north and the west. But from the scale, you're not going to be able to actually see that. So anytime there is a piece of property, it will shape the boundary unless it's an enclave internal to the city.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I had a question, Ms. Wakefield. This is a very convenient graphic to speak to that question. This is an identical graphic that's included in the official copy of the plan posted on Lakewood Speaks. I noticed the area shaded kind of pink for 3 Mile annexable area to the east of Sheridan Boulevard. I believe almost all that land, if not all of it, is the city and county of Denver and is not annexable. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So, I would just ask that this graphic be updated in the document we adopt, but I think when we come to voting on it, I can offer an amendment to that effect.
Okay.
Commissioners, are there any other questions for staff about the 3 Mile Plan? All right, we will now move into public comment. Thank you, Ms. Wakefield. We will begin with Joan Poston. All right, good evening, Ms. Poston. Just a reminder for everyone speaking at public comment tonight, you'll have 3 minutes when you begin speaking. Your light will go green. After 2.5 minutes, it will go yellow. And at the end of 3 minutes, the light will be red. And I will gently and politely remind you to conclude your remarks. Here at the Planning Commission, we do sometimes ask questions of individual people who come and testify. So if you don't mind staying there at the end in case there are any commissioner questions. Ms. Poston, go ahead.
My name is Joan Poston. I appreciate you hearing me today. I live at 10642 West Vassar Place, and that is in one of the striped areas. I live in unincorporated Jefferson County at this time and would like to remain so. The concerns I have about this plan is how there have been some things changing. First of all, you mentioned 4 times that there was nobody who had made an application for annexation. And because of the past history with the city council and the zoning that we have been subjected to, we kind of have a problem when you start saying things and saying things and saying things. I think that this is a step forward to annex, and the reason why is there's been a change in Jefferson County, and it's called the Wildfire Mitigation Plan. Does anybody know how this has moved into Lakewood? This plan has come down from some of the mountain areas, and it's just recently been pushed out to the plains. All of Jefferson County is now under wildlife mitigation comprehensive plan. And under that plan, Jefferson County can change the zonings to do various hardening of structures to prevent fires. They can also do removal of landscape. And it's leading me to think that if you're going to annex us, and then we're going to have another zone. So we're going to have zoning from Lakewood. We're going to have zoning from Jefferson County. Jefferson County's zoning, I believe, has already been done, and I am a little concerned. I did go and testify at Jefferson County's commission. One of the commissioners is actually in the same property that the same section that they're looking to annex. So I thought there might be a little bit of a conflict of interest there. Anyway, I did testify there. This is very complicated because it involves West Metro, it involves Lakewood, and it involves Jefferson County. And overall, it involves the state. And the state has decided that they have the overall of us, and they want to take away local control. And I'd like to remind you that this is a home rule. And the fact that nothing happened to you last year, maybe you should just wait till the next legislature comes, because I think they'll change it again. Thank you very much.
All right. Commissioners, are there any questions for Ms. Poston? I'm seeing none. Thank you for coming out tonight. Next up is Fawn Hampton. Hamptman? Good evening. I'm not sure if I was pronouncing your name correctly.
That's all right. It's Hopman.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you for doing this. This has been very helpful. And the only, I think rather than giving you the remarks that I intended to give tonight, I would like to instead just ask a question. And that question is, I think many of the people who are here tonight probably live within the red and white striped zones, the annexable areas, and I think that was the crux of our concern for turning out tonight, not wanting to be annexed and not really being fully informed about what that process looks like. And I think my only remaining question is, for this panel right now, how long have those annexable areas been drawn or have looked exactly as they do today? And what can we expect from the City of Lakewood going forward in terms of this annual planning process? And how do we, I guess, anticipate because it sounds like if an entire neighborhood wanted to be annexed, there would be a whole process for that. But if they don't want to be annexed and they don't engage in that process, and the city doesn't own that property, that there would there be potential in the future that the city would look to annex an entire neighborhood? So maybe you can help clarify for all of us what that looks like going forward.
All right. Absolutely. Commissioner Overall, and it's just a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in response, I think that the staff behind you is highly knowledgeable about the answers to your questions and
Yes.
generally are very accessible. So I would encourage you to reach out for those answers.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Can we ask them now?
Sure. Yeah. Do you have any other further questions you'd like to ask?
No, I think that really would help most of the people here. I hope it would help them understand what your obligations are under state law, what our obligations are as citizens, and how we can move forward confidently into the future. I mean, I've lived in my neighborhood for 23 years now,
All right.
which is a good long time, and I don't want to see the character of it change, and I think everybody behind me probably feels the same way. And clearly that's not on the agenda for tonight, which I did not understand until I got here. So just like to understand more about what the future looks like. So maybe
Okay.
I can let someone else come up.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll, I'll have you sit down and staff will come up and we can begin answering those questions.
Perfect. Thank you
just
very
my
much.
final question for you is, what neighborhood do you live in? You said you mentioned
I
your
live
neighborhood.
in Ridge Point at Bear Creek.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Thank
Mr.
you.
You're
So
welcome.
if staff could then address some of my questions, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Rice, Ms. Wakefield, a couple questions in there, I guess. How long has the City of Lakewood been doing these mostly annual 3-mile plan updates?
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to answer that question. Do we want to finish public comment first before we get into a discussion with staff? There may be other questions. I can come up now.
Go ahead and come up now. It's,
All right.
the question was just asked. I think it's on everyone's mind. It's easiest to ask it now, and I don't mind. If other commenters have additional questions, we get to them then. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Oh, this is the one I want. Hold on. Yeah, that's actually a good question. How long and what do the areas look like? I'll go through a little history. I've been here since 2005. And in 2005, I believe the 3 Mile Plan was 4, 5, 6 years out of date, and that was one of my first tasks as a planner with the city of Lakewood. So actually the plans you see are a little nicer than what I was doing back then. So if we go back and take a look, the first annexation I can remember in 2008 was actually my case. The Denver Federal Center came into the city of Lakewood. So this boundary, roughly right here, this mile by mile square, came in as a annexation case with a deal between St. Anthony's Hospital and the Denver Federal Center and the city of Lakewood. So that's the first annexation I can remember. These other ones I'm going to miss. We did something out in Denver West, 2010, 2012, something like that. So there was a boundary change out here. There were a park annexation or two, which I can't recall. They may have been down south. Sure. And then we kind of had a pause. So the Taylor property, if everybody remembers where that is, I can't remember the name of Ridgeview Park now, I believe.
Peakview Park.
Peakview. So the Taylor property changed the boundary. This hatched area actually was part of this blue area as well. They asked to be annexed, disposed of some property to the city of Lakewood for a park. So that's a recent annexation. The William Hayden Park, there used to be a big hole right here, and then the city bought a piece of property in the northwest corner. And again, I think we're getting into the late teens, early 20s, when this community resources, so the resource department and their open space contract with Kogo came to an end, and so they annexed both of those properties into the city of Lakewood. I'm probably missing something else. And then
I think that's pretty thorough. I think it does answer the question, I guess, that for at least the 20 years that you've been working in the city of Lakewood planning departments, it's been a well-established regular practice to update a 3 Mile Plan. And there's been some annexations that have changed the plans and required the need for further updates, but this has been going on a long time.
A long time. And we occasionally, as Megan talked about, we occasionally don't update it because we're anticipating a plan adoption or completion of an annexation. So you'll see lapses on the occasion.
All right. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Rice, I just want to make sure I understand then the annexable enclaves that folks have been talking about in public comment and on the Lakewood Speaks have been designated as annexable enclaves for over 20 years. Is that correct? I mean, like well over 20 years.
Yes, it may predate 2005 prior to my start. I won't confirm that because I wasn't here, but yes, at least since 2005.
And the only way for those pieces of property to become part of the city of Lakewood would be through one of those three main ways, and then there would have to be an election amongst the property owners.
Possibly the election, depending on one of the three ways you choose.
Okay.
So yes, there would be some essentially notice of an annexation in that area. Whether there's an election or not is the path chosen to move forward.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Overall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I did hear a question from the previous community member that was, do we have plans? Does the city of Lakewood have plans to annex these hatched areas? Or can they feel confident that they will not be fighting that battle in the near future?
Right. Essentially, the city's policy on those enclaves has been the same since I've been here in 2005. There's no intention of annexing any of those neighborhoods unless the neighborhood comes in a petition the city to do so.
All right. Thank you. And yeah, at the moment, I would surmise that seems unlikely. If anything, we're hearing sentiment that they want the opposite of that. They want it to stay as it is and as it has been for many decades. All right. We'll continue with public comment. Mr. Rice, thank you for
And Mr. Chair, if I may I just want to clarify one thing that was stated about the annexable
Go ahead.
enclaves. So, and I just want to make sure that I address this for Commissioner Williams. So there are 3 ways to be annexed in that we've already discussed. There's the annexation election that's been mentioned. There's the landowner petition where they want to come in. But then the annexable enclaves are unique because those come under a part of state statute that talks about essentially unilateral annexation of enclaves or municipally owned land. So those are actually not subject to an election. The difference here, though, is the statute requires that those be brought in by ordinance, which here at the city requires a first reading, second reading, 30-day referendum period. So it's not something that's just automatic. Even though there's not a public hearing process required in state statute, the city requires one just by virtue of this needing to be brought in with an ordinance. So some of those residents living in those annexable enclaves, not only does the city not have plans to annex those areas, even if the city did, we would have to go through our normal public hearing process. They would have ample opportunity to come in and speak to city council before something like that happened. So that process would be done separately and independently of this 3-mile plan.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification. It does remind me, there was a comment online that alluded to perhaps this enclaving requirement being new. Has the state law changed around any of these annexation rules anytime recently?
There's tweaks to it here and there. The only date or look back you could say is that the enclave has to have been completely surrounded by municipally owned land for at least 3 years. So these have been in existence, as Mr. Rice stated, for at least, they've been identified for at least 20 years, possibly longer, and the city's never attempted to annex those enclaves in.
All right.
We wait until 50% or more of the property owners want to be annexed in, and they bring their own petition.
Okay, thank you. Let's get back on track with public comment. Jerry Hoover is next.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Jerry Hoover. I live in the Green Mountain area of Lakewood, relatively close to areas that could see future annexation. I guess I'm here because I think there's many of us that have concerns over what might happen in the future with future annexation. I've lived in Lakewood for over 10 years. We chose this area because of proximity to services, low crime rates, relative ease in traveling in the area, single-family homes, a sense of community, all the things you look for when choosing a community to live in. That was 10 years ago. Today's reality is a lot different. And the reason I say that is because, look, my wife and I won't go for a walk at night because of crime. The density levels of housing in some areas have made it very, very difficult to drive around. I live on a cul-de-sac off of Union. If it's morning or evening rush hour, it's pretty difficult to get out of there. And a lot of the reason for that is the increase in housing in the area. A lot of the people travel to and from on that road and will, under possible future annexation, increase that amount of traffic. So that's a real concern to us. It's a real concern over property values. There's an impact to the very few remaining rural areas surrounding Lakewood and within Lakewood itself. That history will be gone forever if it continues to grow the way it has. I'm really worried about that opening the door to additional high-density development and the ensuing issues that I just talked about. Diminished property values for those impacted by new higher density housing located adjacent or close to their existing property. Potential increase in taxes. The very real potential. And, I would really like to understand how eminent domain could play a factor in this. There are rules that, would allow eminent domain to be taken, to be exercised in a situation like that. And I'm just not convinced that a lot of what I'm seeing seems to look at, the future tax base of Lakewood rather than the citizens that are already here and have been here and have made Lakewood a great community over the past. So I'd urge you to, I know you're mandated by this, you have to do this, but I'm real concerned about what the next steps are and what could possibly happen. With the changes in zoning and things of that nature, it's very concerning to a lot of us that live in the area. And will the Lakewood that we've come to love and appreciate be the same? Or will we need to move on and find something that fits in with our values? So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Seeing no questions. Patricia Suntum. Is Patricia here? Yes. Sorry. No worries. Good evening.
I'm Patricia Suntum, and I live at 2658 South Newcomb. I'm in the Ridge Point subdivision. I've been there since 2005. And I like being in that area. There's some rural pockets around us, and I would not like to be annexed into the city. And the last gentleman mentioned eminent domain, and I was kind of wondering myself if the city could use eminent domain to try to, take our whole neighborhood for something, and then we wouldn't have any say-so, in it at all.
Okay, any other, does that conclude your remarks? And I'm seeing no questions. We have one person signed up after you. Let's get through comment, and I'll ask some staff some questions about the eminent domain concerns that have been raised. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
The last speaker on the list is Donna Lee.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I live in the Ridge Point area as well, which is one of those striped areas. And I do appreciate the information that you have given us tonight regarding the plans or lack thereof, and the clarification regarding the process. I'm concerned about any possible annexation of the property and the possible impact. And as stated tonight with your process, I would expect that we would have ample time for public comment and to reflect on what that might mean for our neighborhood before anything were to happen. So a lot of information has been helpful tonight, so thank you.
All right, I'm glad it's been helpful. Is there anyone else who is present who would like to speak on this agenda item who has not signed up? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone in the audience, so I will turn to questions for staff. Eminent domain has been brought up. Is there any plan by the city to try to use eminent domain to acquire any land that's currently used for residential purposes, any of these neighborhoods that are in the enclaves within Lakewood or in areas outside of Lakewood?
No, there are no plans to use eminent domain to bring residential areas into the city of Lakewood.
Right, and it's my understanding that eminent domain is a power that governments have to acquire a private property for a public use, and part of that is that in acquiring the property, they must pay a fair market value for it and have a bona fide public use for the land. Is that correct, Ms. Stanek?
That's correct. So the city could not choose to exercise eminent domain or initiate condemnation proceedings just to bring an annexation enclave or a subdivision into the city to remain as residences. The government, any level of government, if they want to exercise eminent domain, has to be able to use the property for a public purpose. And so there are no plans to exercise eminent domain or do anything with these annexation enclaves. We have no public
Right.
purpose or designated public purpose.
Right. Yeah, and moreover, eminent domain is expensive because you have to pay the property owner a fair market value. And so, generally, that's not done unless, the city does have a very specific public purpose in mind that it's a high need. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Are there any examples that you're aware of the city utilizing eminent domain to acquire residential property, someone's home, for public use in the last, I don't know, 30 or 40 years? Has this ever happened?
The only time that we had to acquire residential properties for public use was when the W line, the light rail line, went through Lakewood. Those proceedings concluded sometime, I think, in like 2002. So they started in the late 90s, and the city, we had to pay just compensation, which you have the multiple fair market value assessments for the properties that were impacted. But that was the public purpose at that time was the transit, the W line. But we tried to minimize it as much as possible so that we weren't affecting as many residences. We tried to find a sort of a area where there was already an existing street that was moving east-west and did our best. That's why it was placed on 13th and not closer to Colfax, because we were trying to minimize the number of residences that were impacted. But again, you'd have to go back about 25 years to find that. Most of the time when you think about eminent domain, we're actually talking about, very small pieces that we're trying to put in, like sidewalk, detached sidewalks and things like that. We're not taking residences where we might be taking a few feet to put in that type of infrastructure, but we're paying the property owners in those instances just compensation.
And can I ask a follow-up, Chair? I would
Absolutely.
presume that when we put in when the W line was put in, that's not something like the city of Lakewood determined we should totally put in the W line. This was part of the regional transit thing, and that dates back to like the 80s, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it was part of, it was RTE, CDOT, the state. Basically, once they mapped out where these routes were going to go, that's how that was determined. So they tried to do it to have the most minimal impact on residential properties as possible.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioner Molinar.
Yeah, I also have a question for city staff. Thank you, Chair. Let's say there was a request for annexation. How would people be notified about this? You mentioned something about several readings, but how would people hear about it? Because I think people are also concerned that they don't hear about it on time. Thank you.
So depending on the type of annexation, minimally, so the ones we've been talking about for those annexation enclaves or municipally owned property, minimally, notice we would have to have an ordinance. There would be a first reading of the ordinance. There would be a second reading, which is the public hearing process. So anybody that would be looking at Lakewood Speaks, looking at our postings, it would have to be published in the publication of record. So we have to do all of our normal postings. And then there's also a 30-day referendum. So they would have an opportunity to speak at public comment at the public hearing. These other forms of annexation where you have an annexation election or the landowner petition, the landowner petition has to be signed by more than 50% of the landowners. So you already have a majority that are interested in becoming annexed into the city. For the election, the same kind of thing, the landowners and registered electors in that area all have an opportunity to vote, and you need a majority of those property owners to vote to be annexed into the city. And I know this is a very simplified overview because there's a lot of, dozens of steps in between, but there would be ample notice for individuals if there was an annexation ordinance coming forward, if there was a petition, or if there was an election.
Okay. And a follow-up question, Ms. Stanek. You mentioned a vote, like you said, majority of the property owners. If it's a vote, is it truly a majority of just property owners, or is it registered electors who live in the area?
So the way that it's written in the state statute, it basically says an annexation election in which only landowners and registered electors in the area may vote. So you don't have to be a registered elector. You can be a property owner and not a registered elector, and you're still able to vote. Likewise, you can be both a property owner and a registered elector and vote. And it's a majority of those individuals that would have to, you'd have to have a majority of those individuals choose to be annexed.
Okay, yeah, and that's only for the situation like outside the city's boundaries, where a group of property owners wishes for a larger area to be annexed in.
Yes, and there's still parameters because there still has to be contiguity with the city. There's requirements. There's the 1/6 rule. So it's not just like we could go down to somewhere that has no continuity with the city and say we're going to try to annex this in. There still are other requirements.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? All right. I'll use the discretion of the chair to allow it. Please come forward and state your name to ask the question.
Thank you very much. Fawn Hopman again. My only follow-up question, and thank you so much for your help with all those things, is what would the notification process be for people who live outside of the city of Lakewood currently, if there ever were an annexation petition or ordinance or proposed whatever? And that's it. That's my question.
Thank you. Ms. Stanek, can you answer that question?
Yes, I can. So for individuals living outside the city right now, not the enclaves that we've been discussing, but the ones that are in that red shaded boundary that we saw, there would have to be the contiguity with the city that we've already talked about. But if there was going to be a petition, that's usually started by the landowners in that area. So that's something that presumably neighbors or property owners in that area would would come together and try to get at least 50% or more of the property owners to sign on to the petition. If the city was attempting to perform an annexation, we'd have to go through a number of steps to determine if an annexation election was required. And if it was required, we would have to send notice to every single property owner in the proposed annexed area.
All right, Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I just would encourage folks in the community and who are here tonight who have like very specific questions about specific properties or nuanced follow-up questions to this, because I suspect several of you may. The City of Lakewood does provide a planner of the day that you can talk to ask questions about, and staff here is very accessible. You can always reach out, call, email, those types of things. I just want to make sure that folks are aware of these resources so that there are avenues for that sort of beyond just today's meeting. So I just want to make sure that, and another one of our commissioners mentioned this earlier, but I just really want to make sure that folks in the community are aware of that as a resource as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Seeing no more commissioner questions, is there a motion? Commissioner Williams.
I move to approve PL 25003, the 3 Mile Plan, as recommended by staff.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the plan itself? All right, I am seeing none, and so we will cast a vote. The motion is to approve the 3 Mile Plan. A yes vote will be in favor of approving that plan. Hold on a second. And that motion carries 6 yeses and 0 noes. I just want to thank everyone in the surrounding areas to Lakewood for coming out tonight, and within Lakewood for coming out and learning more about this plan. I'm sure Annexation is a sensitive topic. I'm glad we could have this conversation about it and learn more factual information. And we do appreciate all of you coming here this evening. We will now move on to our next agenda item. Mr. Clerk, can you read item 4 into the record?
Item 4, case number SU 22-0002 at 6851 West Colfax Avenue, a Quick Trip special use permit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Medina. For this case, we will see shortly with the presentations by staff and by the applicant. This has taken a rather unusual route to get to us, just in that the application is fairly old. As the presentation will say in a few moments, the application actually dates from 2022. So taking 3 years to get to the Planning Commission is an unusually long time for a special use permit, but there are reasons for that we will hear. Again, pursuant to state statute, that's kind of the phrase of the night, this special use permit application is to be evaluated on the basis of criteria that were legally established at the time of the application of this permit. And so in the ensuing presentations and discussion, we're going to hear a lot of discussion about the comprehensive plan that the city adopted in 2015 that looked forward to 2025. That comprehensive plan, of course, we know was was replaced by the 2040 comp plan in July of this year. But that's not the applicable comp plan to this application because of how old it is. Likewise, there's even been some zoning updates several times since 2022. Those are also not applicable. There's been several other zoning documents adopted since planning documents adopted since 2022 that we saw referenced in the 3 Mile Plan earlier tonight. None of those plans after the date of the application are applicable to this case. Pursuant to, again, longstanding state statute, we will consider this case on the basis of the criteria that were in effect when this application was submitted to the city. With that, I will call forward Ms. Mueller, the case planner for this. Or do I begin with the applicant? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, let's begin with the applicant. I'm sorry. The applicant will make a presentation. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. All right, and please state your name for the record, ma'am.
Of course, while Kara's getting that set up. My name is Shelby Madrid. I am a civil engineer and I work with Kinley Horn and Associates, and I am here on behalf of Quick Trip. Carolyn White will also be joining me. She's just sitting down for the first part. All right, so thank you, Commissioner Buckley, for teeing up the project. We are going to go over some project timelines, things like that, to provide some background on why this project has lasted as long as it has.
Thank you.
So we all know why we're here this afternoon, or this evening, I apologize. So some introductions. Again, I am Shelby Madrid. Carolyn White will join me. Jessica Glavis with Quick Trip is here as well, and our traffic engineer, Jeff Plank, is with us for any traffic-related questions if needed. We'll go over some timelines, the specific site, review of applicable criteria, which you've teed up for us nicely, thank you, and some site renderings, which are very helpful to understand what's going on around the site. All right, already went through this, we're gonna speed through it. So a little bit about Quick Trip. A lot of folks hear Quick Trip, they're not sure what it is. What does that mean? Quick Trip is a fuel station and convenience store that is founded in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1958, whose primary purpose is to provide opportunities for their employees to grow and succeed. They're 100% privately owned and operated by the families and employees. They do strive to be a top-tier convenience store operator. There is a store here in Lakewood. If you've had the opportunity to go to it, I hope you've had that experience. Each location does have a full-service kitchen and a variety of made-to-order food. Fun fact, they have never laid off a single employee in the history of the company, which I think that's a super cool thing even through 2020. And Quick Trip does contribute 5% of its profits to local charitable organizations in the community. It's not up there on the screen, but we did confirm today, we do have Quick Trip does have 24 stores that are open in Colorado as a whole today. That last opening happened very recently. So some timelines. As Commissioner Buckley alluded to, this project actually, we made our first pre-planning application in September of 2020. So it has been quite the long haul to get here, so thank you for your time. In June 2021, we had our first SUP application. We had a neighborhood meeting in January 2022. Fast forward, another application, another neighborhood meeting. Coming out of that February 2022 commentary, we were asked to submit a CLOMR, which for those who may not be aware, that is an application to FEMA Floodplain Regulatory Agency because the site is in proximity or was at the time in a floodplain. So we did go through that process with the state as requested by the city at that time, leading us into September 2024. If you are not aware, the CLOMR process does take quite a long time. We're working with the federal government. So that did take from October 2023 to April of 2024. And so because of that time frame and that lag, we went into September in 2024. We had an additional neighborhood meeting. It'd been a while. We wanted to re-engage the community, leading us into what then became our final conditional land use permit submittals in December, March, and April of 2025. Now you'll notice on the screen it does say our planning commission was August of 2025. Obviously we're in November now. That is not the case. A variety of different things led us to a delay or not being able to have planning commissions from between August and today. So we're grateful to be here today. Some outreach history we wanted to go over. Again, Commissioner Buckley alluded to 2022. This outreach history is not associated with the city itself, but rather the agencies and other invested parties associated with this project in this location. So January 2022, we met with the West Colfax Community Association. We've met with the city. We met with the business district, met with the city again, presented to the West Colfax Community Association, and then in June 2024, we also met and presented to the 40 West Arts Board. We understand that this area is on the 40 West Art Line. We wanted to be considerate of that and make sure that we're engaging all of those parties that have stakeholdership in this parcel. All right, so now where are we at? Site location and zoning. Let me flip to gotta get up to speed with myself. All right, so the site location is highlighted in blue there on the screen. We are located at the northwest corner of Pierce Street and West Colfax Avenue. If you've been past this parcel lately, you've probably noticed that it is vacant. One might describe it as obsolete, maybe neglected. Definitely looking for some rehabilitation associated on it. The site is zoned as mixed use general urban. A convenience store is a use by right. So we are here to talk about the fuel station that requires the special use permit, which Carolyn will go into detail in a little bit here. Some specific site details we would like to highlight. We've put a lot of time and energy into this plan, and we've kind of color-coded in order to have a lot of conversation and dialogue with y'all tonight. Our community features, we understand this is an area of the community that we want to engage the community. 40 West Arts District, the line is here. We want to make sure to activate that. So we're proposing 2 plaza seating areas north of the structure, a future art studio in the northeast corner. We are not sure what that looks like. I'll get into that in a little bit. Meandering sidewalk with art features that are on the west side of the site to promote that 40 West Art Line. We understand that's where it exists today. We want to continue that. We've also added EV chargers, again, compliant with the code in 2022, not subject to the code that is today. So that meandering walk, or what we're calling is the sculpture walk, it provides pedestrian connectivity on that west side of the property between Colfax and Lakewood Place. We're bringing pedestrians off of those primary roadways and putting them in an area that feels safe, easy to walk, comfortable. Sculpture pedestals placed along there to really activate that art space and continue that art line intention. The sculpture programming, we are proposing, or Quick Trip is proposing that it be managed and procured by 40 West Arts District. However, I do want to note that is not in place yet. That is a proposal for partnership that we are going to work through in the future. The meandering sidewalk will allow pedestrians to enjoy those sculptures like a smaller gallery. That is the intent of it. The container studio, which was just north of that walk, terminates at that sculpture walk. The design is pending, again, a partnership that we would like to have in the local community, though the design and programming is yet to be determined. The intent is to activate the site with additional art to, again, activate that 40 West Art Line. The pergola and seating that I mentioned north of that structure, you can see the rendering and that kind of 2D engineered drawing there. It is adjacent to the store entrance, so it sits right there, grab some snacks, come outside, sit down, space for customers and artists to relax and enjoy the outdoors with a little bit of shade. And again, provide an area for those walking that district or that art line to come in, take a break, get a Slurpee, whatever they would like. So some building renderings and elevations. There is four-sided architecture as required by the city, and because of the corner that we are sitting on, we want to activate that. What I mean by four-sided architecture is that every side of the building looks as though it could be a front entrance or facade of the structure that is intended to be viewed by the public. As you can see here, I even have a hard time telling which one's the front and which one's the back. That rear elevation is that bottom one. We have faux windows, glass, that activates all of the space. The fuel canopy, the materials on that fuel canopy will mirror those of the structure itself and provide cover over those fuel pumps like you see on every gas station today. Traffic safety, we always want to hit on traffic safety. We care about traffic safety just as much as the community around us. I drive in the community as well. We are closing 2 of the existing access points to the site, which inherently will decrease the amount of opportunity for pedestrian vehicular conflicts and just traffic in and out of the site itself. On the left there, you'll see we've put a big red X's over the locations that we are closing, so there will not be vehicular access to Pierce. And on the right, you will see the or my right, I think it's your right too. You can see those 2 access points that we are proposing to remain generally close to the existing condition in the green circles, and we're adding those detached sidewalks around the city. Around the site. There is a joint effort between the city and Quick Trip for this property to provide those pedestrian sidewalks. Some things to note, so the pink sidewalk, the reason it's pink, this is a joint effort with the city. There are some ongoing city public improvement plans that we are partnering with them on. The bus stop in that lower right-hand corner at the intersection, that is a city project that we're just making sure everything sits well with. The blue sidewalk are the sidewalks that are not a joint effort, but still obviously something that we are providing. So I'm going to invite Carolyn White up to discuss some detail on the review of the applicable criteria.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission, members of city staff, members of the public. My name is Carolyn White, and I'm Land Use Counsel for the applicant. And my role in the presentation this evening is to go over the criteria with you. I also will just mention that we also have submitted several letters throughout this process, and they are all included in your packet. They're attached as Exhibit C to the staff report. In some of those letters, we go through in some detail on the criteria. I'm not going to repeat everything that's in those letters, but just hit on a couple of the highlights. I also want to mention that the staff report does a similar analysis, and we agree and concur with the analysis in the staff report. We pretty much are on the same page there. So let's see if I can do this correctly. Okay, so these are your special use permit review criteria as they were at the time of application, as was pointed out by the chair. In section 17.2.4.2, these are the special use criteria. And what's really tricky about this particular analysis is that 4 of these 5 criteria actually cross-reference to other chapters in the code, which in turn each have a separate list of criteria. And that's why I referred you to those letters, because if we went through every single one of those in this meeting, it would go very, very long. But I do want to just I'm going to jump back and forth a little bit to highlight some of the ones that are we think relevant. So the first one says that we'd like you to be consistent with the applicable supplemental standards set forth in Article 4. And Article 4 lists those supplemental standards are use specific, meaning the list of standards that we have to comply with in Article 4 is just those that specifically apply to fueling stations. Proposed use is consistent with the dimensional and development standards in Article 5. Those are standards that are applicable to all uses. Design standards in Article 6 and 7 similarly, and then consistency with the comprehensive plan, which we'll talk about, and it will not substantially impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property. That's really just talking about impacts on adjacent properties. So let's look at the very first criterion under that cross-reference to Article 4, which is it meets all the site design requirements in this reference section here, 17.7.6.3b. And as noted in the staff report, all of those criteria are met. Some of those specific ones that we're flagging here, it requires that you provide a canopy. The project does have a canopy. Another one of those fueling station specific ones is the distance requirement. And we've reproduced here a graphic that appears in a larger format in your packet, demonstrating that there are no other fuel stations within 1,000 feet, so that criterion is met. So then we go to this other subsection in section 6 and 7 that lists the requirements for fuel stations when they are located in a mixed-use urban environment. So this is things like it has to be on a collector or arterial street, right? Like a larger roadway. That checks. In the mixed-use zone district, you have build to requirements, except that the building is only required to meet 50% and the pump canopy can be behind on the side. Going back a little bit to that graphic that we showed just a moment ago, you can see from the overall site layout that this requirement of how the site is laid out will be met. The pump canopy shall match the architectural style of the main building. We're going to show you some more renderings here in a minute, and you can see how that theme of the building is being carried through. The pump canopy can't exceed 20 feet in height. This canopy meets that measurement. Criterion 5 about landscaping is a little tricky because you don't usually have a complete and detailed landscaping plan at the special use permit stage. We have submitted some information about our proposed landscaping plan, but that will really be set forth in more detail when we come forward with the major site plan, which would be the next step required in this approval process, where we would demonstrate that there would be landscaping, screen wall, et cetera, and all of these other requirements related to the landscaping plan. So that's the cross-reference criteria in Chapter 7. And then going back to the main Article 4 supplemental standards, we have this cross-reference to Article 5. These are all really numerical technical standards. I won't go into detail about them. You can just objectively tell by looking at them that they're met, and all of those requirements are in fact met, as is set forth in more detail in the packet. Consistent with the applicable design standards in Articles 6 and 7, that's Criterion C, and we've listed some of them here. Again, I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but these include things like how the building has to be designed, including materials, colors, architecture, on-site circulation standards, sidewalk, all of that, the required amount of open space, exterior lighting, and we are not requesting any variances from any of those standards. The proposed site will meet all of those requirements. Criterion D, this one talks about consistency with the comprehensive plan. And as was already mentioned, the comprehensive plan that we are measuring this application against, that you are measuring this application against, is Lakewood 2025 Moving Forward Together, which was the comprehensive plan that was in place at the time of this application, as well as other adopted city plans. And we have listed several of the other potentially applicable city plans on this slide, even though some of these were adopted after the application was submitted. I think I was supposed to kick it back to you to talk about the technical criteria. But since I'm on a roll here with the comprehensive plan, I'll just keep going. So this comprehensive plan analysis really is also a little bit complicated because, as you all are familiar, I'm sure because you review this criterion with almost every type of application, your comprehensive plan, whether you're talking about the old one or the new one, has a whole lot in it, a whole lot of goals, and it is impossible for any single application to meet all of the goals in the comprehensive plan because some of them are inherently in conflict, right? You have goals that say we want to preserve more open space, and we have goals that say we want more density and more affordable housing. And so each application is going to have to find those things that it is consistent with, but rarely would you ever find an application that is consistent with every goal in the comprehensive plan. What we've done here is highlight some of the ones that we think are particularly applicable to this application. One of them is the fact that this site is identified in that comprehensive plan as a growth area, an area that is designated for uses which are of higher intensity, higher density. In other words, it is the type of site that is appropriate for a use such as a fuel station and a convenience store. And that is one of those uses that are highlighted there on that graphic, which is excerpted from the 2025 comprehensive plan. We've also listed a couple of the other relevant goals here, talking about diversifying the economy, creating new employment opportunities, and transitioning Colfax Avenue from a suburban arterial roadway to a complete urban street and primary economic corridor. And some of the things we're doing to improve the site, like the detached sidewalks, like coordinating with the city on the bus station and the drainage improvements are all going to further that goals. And even though no partnership has been established as of yet, the ultimate goal here is to establish that partnership with the 40 West Arts District in order to really activate some of the spaces that Quick Trip proposes to set aside on the property for use with the arts. And I would just venture to say in that regard, this fuel station will be wholly unlike any other fuel station and convenience store anywhere, not just in the metro area, but anywhere, with the really unique and interesting things they're proposing to do to connect this site to the arts. Some of the other planning documents that are met with this project includes the Lakewood Electric Vehicle Action Plan. We are proposing EV chargers on the site, the Lakewood Sustainability Plan, and there's a kind of a summary here of some of the ways in which this site is planning to be designed in order to further the sustainability goals, building electrification, hydro zones for irrigation, and some of the social connection amenities such as the outdoor plaza areas that Shelby talked to you about later. And I think that was supposed to be Shelby's slide too. Do you want to come back up?
So I'll go ahead and continue on. Before I do want to highlight the Lakewood Electric Vehicle Action Plan. We are adding EV chargers to this site. I do want to highlight, I know there has been recent updates to that plan. We are compliant with the plan that was in existence at the time of our application. As Carolyn mentioned, the proposed use, we do not believe it will substantially impair the appropriate use or development of the adjacent property. With the MGU zone district, that higher level of motor vehicle activity is encouraged, it is expected. This is exactly that. And you all may be aware, but we do want to highlight the surrounding uses. To the east is a shopping center, west, Hopper Sales, north, car wash, and south is auto sales. This area is an auto-activated environment, so this use does fit very well with the surrounding spaces. Some other things we do want to highlight about the not substantially impair the development. It is a fuel station. There will be underground fuel tanks. There's no doubt about that. They are double-walled, state-of-the-art leak detection systems that Quick Trip has tested and tried again. They are improving them all the time to make sure that these are the best available on the market to date. And they consistently monitor these storage links, mitigate spills, to mitigate any impact to the surrounding environment to the best of our ability to date. We've already talked a lot about the detached sidewalks and improving the pedestrian access and activity. Another item to add, there is an added security component that comes with the Quick Trip development. 100% of the property, well, I shouldn't say it, most of the property will be monitored by 24-hour, 7 days a week, active cameras and monitors that go straight back to the area security Quick Trip Security Department in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that is monitored 24/7. So that is an added feature of this area, of the level of security that will come with this redevelopment. Additionally, I touched on it at the beginning of this when I went over the project timeline discussing the floodplain boundary. The site does lie within a mapped floodplain. Since then, the city has gone through some improvements and projects that have since changed that floodplain boundary. Additionally, we also did a CLOMR analysis with our proposed site improvements to ensure that no insurable structures on our property or adjacent properties are negatively impacted by this development and can remain insured as they exist today without floodplain impacts. One more element about that related to stormwater, we do have an on-site water quality pond as required by state and local legislation to provide a water quality component for stormwater treatment. Stormwater collected on site, all developed, will be conveyed to the on-site water quality detention pond where it is treated, settled, sediment settles, anything of that nature, and then it is discharged to a below-grade stormwater treatment facility. That means it's held attenuated so that when it releases to the existing storm sewer system in the public right-of-way, it matches or is less than the existing conditions so that we are not negatively impacting or inundating a downstream system. And we will now go over a little bit of that compliance with 40 West Arts.
So finally, even though it's not specific to one of the criteria for special use review, we did want to spend some time talking about the 40 West Arts District Framework Plan. This plan was actually adopted by the City of Lakewood after this application was filed, and so it's not technically one of the applicable plans, but we also are really aware of and very sensitive to the importance of this area in the community. This property is immediately adjacent to the designated 40 West Arts District, and so we want to spend a few minutes talking about how this project furthers the vision and can be compatible with what's proposed in that framework plan. So on this slide, we're just kind of pulling out some excerpts from the framework plan to highlight what it is that the framework plan is looking for, right? A plan that reflects the community's vision to enhance the art line as a creative placemaking amenity that supports a resilient, equitable, and vibrant neighborhood. And then these are some of the goals and strategies that we think this plan that we're proposing for our special use are particularly in line with. So for example, establishing an identifiable public realm and with vibrant art and aesthetically interesting, promoting pedestrian safety, that first one. That's really the idea behind that curving walkway with the pedestrian the connection from north-south from Lakewood Place to Colfax, with the pedestals that will have different, we hope, different sculptures on them that'll be like a rotating opportunity for participants in the Arts District to display their work and for people to kind of get off of Colfax, get off of Pierce, and have this nice little meandering walkway to really fulfill that goal. We're also looking at this as one of those smaller loops within the art line where you could sort of detour off. Maybe you want to get a cold drink at the convenience store, park your bicycle at a safe bicycle parking place, and take a little break and enjoy the art. So, and then the idea that we're really creating a long-lasting community amenity here. This is still going to be part of Quick Trip's property, and at least as to the public open space, Quick Trip will be maintaining that open space even though it is open to the public. We do hope to work out some type of arrangement with one of the local arts groups in terms of the programming of what's going to happen in that little container space and the art pedestals. Right, that's not Quick Trip's business. You saw what their business is. It's not art, but we really hope that we will be able to cooperate and coordinate and collaborate with the Arts District to come up with the right way to populate those areas once they're created. This map just kind of shows you how the property fits into the overall art line. You see it's that little yellow dot sort of on the left side there. As I'm sure you're aware, the existing public realm along Colfax is not particularly pedestrian friendly at the moment. We really hope to improve that situation with what's being proposed here. Again, these are some of the excerpts from the 40 West Arts District Plan. Densifying public art should be focused strategically to elevate the experience, add an element of surprise for Artline visitors. You know, that's exactly what we're proposing to do by placing art in places that you would not expect it, right? On a fuel station and convenience store. It's actually, really a great opportunity. So now I'd like to turn it back to Shelby to just run through some site renderings with you so you can get a feel for what this is going to look like.
Last switch, I promise. So some site renderings, these are some of my favorite. It gives you an idea of what this site is going to feel like and the user experience that we'll see. Bird's eye view from the southwest corner. As I mentioned earlier, those materials between the building and the canopy, they are aligned. You can see that art walk, which is heavily vegetated with those art sculptures. A view from the parking lot looking to the south from the northwest corner with that pergola, seating area, and outdoor space. Again, another bird's eye view from that northeast corner, again with that pergola, the kind of green space that you see closer to the lower right-hand corner of the screen was where that the water quality pond will sit. Another bird's eye view from the overall site, just what does it look like? And this is one of my favorite views. This is the view of the actual rear of the structure, which I know is wild to think about, that this is the back of a structure. What's not shown is kind of bottom left of the screen is where the bus stop will be with the City of Lakewood bus stop. So there'll be a ramp directly to the side of the structure, which I think is super cool that this is what is normally considered a back of house of a building, and it looks very activated and right up against the right of way. That is our presentation. We thank you so much for your time. We know we took a little while to go through. We wanted to make sure it had a lot of points that we've heard throughout this very long process. I can stay up here for questions, or if we're going straight to staff.
All right, now, Ms. Madrid, Ms. White, thank you very much for your time and for your thorough and detailed presentation. Are there any questions from commissioners right now? Commissioner Holman.
Thank you, Chair. So I was looking at the 2019 zoning code. 17.8.4 mentions bicycle parking. Will there be bicycle parking as part of this?
I'm 99% sure we do have it, and I didn't touch on it. And if not, we will add it.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yes, we do.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair, and just appreciate the thorough presentation and thoughtful approach to this. You mentioned there are a number of electric charging stations. I'm curious if you have any sense of what type of electric charging stations there would be there. Are they quick charging? Are they not? I'm just curious.
Level 3. Yeah. Level
Great.
3 quick.
Thank you.
Commissioner Molinar.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I wanted to ask a question about EV charging as well, and I was wondering if there is room for expansion of EV charging if the market demands.
Are you referring to like EV capable, EV potential type charging?
Yes.
Okay. Truthfully, we haven't gotten to that stage in design yet, but it's definitely something we'll consider.
Thank you.
Do you want more information on potential for growth?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jessica Glavis with Quick Trip. I'm a real estate project manager. Oh, did I? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Don't touch.
You're good.
So we are always evaluating EV charging, and we don't have capable built in right now, but our intention is that as things shift, we could potentially even shift that under the canopy in the future if that's the direction that things go.
Thank you.
Okay, and Ms. Madrid, I had a question. Can you elaborate on the CLOMR, I believe that's the conditional letter of map revision in the FEMA floodplain process? You touched on that, how that affected your timeline, and also the city project with the Dry Creek drainage improvements that's changed all that. Kind of touch on that from the big picture, and specifically, I know buildings can't be in the floodplain, of course. We don't want that. But if I'm not mistaken, the map in the packet did show the underground storage tanks and the fuel tanks themselves being within that floodplain. And so is that any sort of issue?
I'm going to answer your question. I'm just trying to get to this slide that I want to
Of course.
use for a visual representation. Slide 34 is where I'm trying to go. There we go. So to answer your first question, you were correct. Buildings are not allowed, insurable structures are not allowed to be within a floodplain. In fact, they need to be a foot in elevation above the nearest adjacent floodplain to protect them from any surcharging floods in the case of an emergency event, which we have done here. Did you want me to touch more on the timeline or more so the structures being within the floodplain or the tanks and pond?
Yeah, just to clarify the timeline of like when exactly you started doing the process with FEMA and when exactly Lakewood's city-sponsored projects changed the floodplain, and if that's impacted the design you're presenting in any way because of the interplay with what the city's doing.
Of course. To answer your last question there, has it impacted the way that we've designed the site with the city improvements? No. The city improvements further improved the site that we are already going to make and further pulled the floodplain away from our site. To answer your question about the pond and the underground detention being within the floodplain boundary, you are correct. A portion of them does lie within that boundary. That is allowable by state and federal regulations. It's a stormwater structure. Those below ground chambers are what they are for detention will be anchored down to prevent a float condition in the event of surcharging all around the tanks. Or the chambers. The below grade fuel tanks, those are, let me go to another page. The below-grade fuel tanks are actually not within the flood. I'm going to misspeak. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was not clear.
They are within the floodplain boundary. They are anchored down as well. Again, they are double-walled. They are anchored, so they do not have a float condition. What we do is a buoyancy test on them and a buoyancy analysis to ensure that they're anchored properly so that there's not any accidental spills, breakage, pressure system, external pressure on those tanks in the event of a flood event.
Okay. And does the gas station canopy itself, which of course is a requirement of the special use permit that it exists, is that structure itself considered an insurable structure for FEMA floodplain?
That's a great
purposes?
question. So is it considered an insurable structure? I believe so. I would have to get back to you to confirm that. All of the MPDs, they're called multiple product dispensers, they are flood-proof up to 4 feet above grade to ensure that in the event of any flooding condition that it does not impact this structure itself nor the fuel pumps.
Okay. And the floodplain you're mapping here is for a 100-year event, correct? Yeah, so that's a flood that has a 1% chance of happening every year. And if that 1% chance it could happen every year flood were to occur, how deep does the water get on this site? Absent the city's improvements, of course, which we know are coming, but it's still important for your site to stand independently.
That is a great question that I do not have the answer to offhand. I can tell you it'll vary across the site based on grade.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that maximum depth is, but I can definitely get that.
Okay, but the convenience store building itself is at least a foot above that.
Correct.
And the fuel canopy structure is not above it, it's within it.
It is within it, however, it is flood-proof up to, I think, 3 or 4 feet above it.
Okay, yeah, it would be useful to know if the floodwaters got 3 or 4 feet high. That would seem really high, but yeah,
we're on the upper end of that floodplain boundary where it starts to taper off. We could definitely provide that information if needed, though.
Okay, very good. There's some nice renderings and discussion in the packet about the public art walk as part of working with the 40 West Arts District, and it's certainly appreciated the efforts you've outlined to work with them, going so far as to argue how it's compatible with the 40 West Arts District Framework Plan, which is not applicable to your application, but it is applicable to everything else that's happening on the corridor going forward. So we appreciate an effort to be compatible with that. The renderings do show a lot of landscaping, like a kind of a meandering path. There were some public comments at the meeting in September that ultimately got delayed about public safety concerns along that path. Things like possible encampments of unhoused individuals, or just other concerns about safety in this well-shaded, well-landscaped, buffered area. Can you speak about, the environmental design with an eye towards public safety of this whole site, and particularly that art path area?
Absolutely. So from the environment, you're right, there is a lot of vegetation shown, and that's intentional to create a space. Of course, we want to provide adequate landscaping that looks nice and intentional. As far as landscaping design in order to provide public safety, I think what you're referring to is line of sight from areas in order to ensure there are not areas where people can tuck back around or have what you might refer to as like a hiding space or something of that nature that will be provided. Additionally, there will be lighting along the walk. In the image, it's hard to see. You can kind of see a light post there along that walk. On those light poles, there will also be security cameras. Additionally, if needed, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, if 24-hour security is needed to maintain safety on this site, that will be provided. I believe we provided on the current Lakewood site, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Changing topics somewhat again. I believe in 2022, when you submitted the now applicable application, this site had several other businesses on it. I believe there was a sports bar, an art studio, a dry cleaner, and a donut shop. Can you give me a timeline? When were those demolished in relationship to your application?
I don't remember the exact date. We can find it. There was an accident that actually a vehicle ran into the building in 2020.
Yeah, if Ms. Glovis wants to add more, that's certainly welcome.
I'm not sure. I don't remember exact dates. I could go back through my emails and find them if you would like them. But we definitely applied and did a lot of application work before the buildings were demolished. There was an RV that crashed into the donut shop, so that kind of facilitated, I guess, us needing to demolish that building for sure, and then the other businesses had moved pretty soon after that or right before that. So.
Okay. Commissioner Holman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I believe it was late 2022 when they were demolished after that RV crash happened. And that kind of transitions into my next question, which is, will there be, I guess, like bollards or some kind of prevention so that that doesn't happen again? That would be horrible.
Yes, bollard protection around the entire structure. In fact, I don't know if you can see it in these renderings. We may not have it.
We have curb here too. Right?
Oh, we do have curb here as well. Typically, Quick Trip properties do not actually have curb around the building. It is strictly just bollards. However, it is a Lakewood requirement to have curb around the structure. We do have bollards in addition to that 6-inch vertical curb, and they are vehicular rated.
Okay, thank you.
Good idea. All right. That's all my questions for now. I'm sure we may have questions later, but let's get on to the staff presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kara Mueller, and I'm with the Development Assistance Division of the Sustainability and Community Development Department with the City of Lakewood. The purpose of tonight's public hearing in this case is for the Quick Trip Special Use Permit located at 6851 West Colfax Avenue, case SU 22-2. The applicant, as you've heard their presentation, is requesting the special use permit to allow a fueling station use at 6851 West Colfax Avenue. Approval of the SUP by the Planning Commission this evening would allow the applicant to submit a major site plan for a fueling station at this location. A little bit about the site. The subject site is approximately 1.92 acres in size, and it is currently vacant. The site is located adjacent to the 40 West Art District, as well as the interactive art line, which is located along West Lakewood Place and the Pierce Street frontages. With an approved SUP, the applicant would be intending to place a convenience with restaurant use to-go kitchen, as well as the fueling station use with gasoline. The applicant is proposing an artist studio in the northwest corner, as well as you heard the meandering sculpture walk along the western side. The proposed improvements will require a major site plan in accordance with Article 2, and the site and architecture will require review and approval by the city's Design Review Commission if this SUP is approved. This is a vicinity map, as you can see outlined in yellow, the site. This is new enough you can see that it is a vacant site, and it is at the northwest corner of Colfax and Pierce. This is the zoning for the site, and again, indicated here in yellow, you can see that it is in the mixed-use general urban MGU zone district, and it is surrounded by the dark purple, which is all similar zoning. This is a buffer map that was included to show that it can meet the supplemental standard for spacing to existing fueling stations. It's a little hard to see on here, so I'll just circle. This is the 1,000-foot buffer here in the center. This little yellow guy right there is the actual site location. And then this larger ring that is around it shows a half mile. If you do take a look at the numbers, there is not a fueling station within 1,000 feet, which is the requirement at the time of the submittal per ordinance, but also is showing that there's not one within a half mile as well. This is a blow-up of the conceptual land use plan, and just a couple things to highlight here. The structures on the site are indicated in orange, so you have the primary building brought up to the intersection where we'd like to see that with the build-to zone. You have the canopy that is required, and that is located to the side of the building. You also have the proposed art structure tucked up here in the northwest corner, which would be along the art line along West Lakewood Place. The little areas shown in blue are seating areas that are shown across the site, and the meandering walk is called out along with the stars, which are the pedestals that they're showing for future sculptures. The dark blue or purple line that you see coming across the site, that is approximately the 100-year floodplain, which you have also heard quite a bit about. The applicant did submit that conditional letter of map revision with the application to show that this site is buildable with the proposed changes to the floodplain. And we really wanted to see that because of the timing. So as part of Article 2 for an SUP application, if it is approved this evening, you have 2 years to get an approved major site plan, and the CLOMR must be approved before we can approve major site plan. So we wanted to make sure that we were not proceeding forward to Planning Commission hearing and actually bringing something that could possibly not meet that requirement or be built. So here's a little bit of a process, and I'll go through it quickly. There was a pre-planning application, one in 2020, but also the one that precipitated the need for the special use permit in 21. There were 3 neighborhood meetings, 2 of which were held prior to the formal application in 2022. And then formally and promptly, that application came in shortly after the last one in February of 2022. Review, including the CLOMR, happened between February of 2022 and July of 2025. Again, it had been a little while since there had been a neighborhood meeting, so that's where you see the 3rd neighborhood meeting that occurred in September of 2024. And then we are here today, November of 2025, to finally hear this case. Again, there were 3 neighborhood meetings. There was some consistency with some of the items that folks brought up and concerns, including increased traffic, site maintenance and safety, the land use itself, the quantity of fueling stations along the Colfax corridor, as well as proximity to the 40 West Art District and how that would interact. It is important to call out that there was positive as well as some opposition, both voiced at these neighborhood meetings. So there are 5 criteria, and I'll quickly go over these because I think the applicant went into these in great detail. Satisfy the supplemental standards of Article 4. Staff has found that they can meet those standards, and I'll go into those in a little bit more detail here in a moment. Satisfy the applicable dimensional development standards of Article 5, and Article 7 for design standards is number 3. Since this is a commercial site, it is Article 7 and not Article 6. Needs to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and other city-wide adopted plans, again, those that were in place at the time of the 2022 submittal, and will not substantially impair the use of the development on adjacent properties. So the supplemental standards that we'd be looking at are from Ordinance 2021-11 and the 40 West Art Line plans in place at the time. The staff report goes into greater detail, but I'll go ahead and cover some of that here. The supplemental standards for the fueling station will be met. There will be the canopy provided, architecture and screening requirements will be met, and the fueling station will not be located closer than 1,000 feet to any existing fueling station. And they will meet the applicable standards of Article 5 and 7. If this is approved, that will be reviewed and checked at the time of major site plan. The proposed fueling station is located within the Colfax Avenue and West Rail Line growth area, and it is also north of the Lamar Street West Rail Station area. Those growth areas within the 2025 Lakewood Moving Forward Comprehensive Plan are typically areas that were planned for higher density everything from residential, commercial, industrial, across the board. The existing businesses within this actual area do include retailers, restaurants, as well as motor vehicle dealers. The proposal here is a retail, restaurant, and convenience, so there is a mix of uses on the site, and they actually match with what's happening in the surrounding area. More specifically, goals ICS1 and ICS7 talk to employment opportunities and continuing to diversify Lakewood's economy and stabilize tax base. There's also enhanced placement through site elements, and that hits all of the plans such as the West Colfax Vision 2040 plan, the 40 West Arts District Urban Design and Mobility Concepts Plan, the 40 West Placement Implementation Plan, and Public Arts Master Plan. The applicant is also proposing 2 electrical vehicle charging stations, as we have now learned is the level 3. Those are not required per the code that's currently in place, so they are actually opting to provide that on this site. They're also proposing building electrification, and that will go toward meeting their greenhouse gas mitigation requirements. And again, as you heard from the applicant, there are ways to mitigate this type of use, such as the specialized fuel tanks, state-of-the-art, and all fueling stations would have to meet EPA and state air quality requirements. Just to quickly go over, these are the Article 4 supplemental standards. These are special provisions for uses that require a special use permit or a limited use. So on a case-by-case basis, some uses need to be looked at a little bit more, so you have to meet all of these standards. The first is the design standards in Article 7 that are very specific to a fueling station. That's having the canopy, providing a screen wall adjacent to the street for that canopy. All of those elements will be checked and are generally shown to be consistent on the conceptual land use plan if this is approved. They are providing a canopy to shield the fueling. Again, that canopy will meet the architecture of the primary building and not exceed 20 feet in height, as indicated in the conceptual land use plan. And then the fueling station cannot be located closer to 1,000 feet, and that is not the case, so we don't need to look further into those provisions. Hearing notification did go out, written notice to neighborhood representatives as well as registered organizations per Article 2. Notice signs were posted on the property, 1 per street frontage per the code requirements. Referral reviews were sent to all utility agencies, including West Metro Fire, and you can see those comments within the staff report. We did not receive any objections from the utility providers, and they would have to continue to work with them on all the various elements of this site. So the findings of fact in order, the applicant is requesting approval of a special use permit for a fueling station. Notice requirements have been satisfied. The request was reviewed by the appropriate referral agencies, and the proposed special use meets the applicable review criteria. Therefore, staff's recommendation is the Planning Commission adopt the findings of fact in order as presented in the staff report and approve case SU 22-2. Thank you for your time. That concludes staff's presentation, and we're available for questions.
All right, commissioners, any staff questions right now? We can hold those as I'm seeing none. Mr. Medina, was there anyone who signed up for public comment on this item tonight? I did not have a list.
I'll have a look, but besides what's up there, there shouldn't be anything else, but I'll double check.
Okay. Did anyone in the audience sign up to speak on this agenda item for public comment? It does not appear that anyone wishes to speak, and I'm getting an indication that there's no names on the list that was by the door. So with that, I will close public comment, and we can move back to questions for staff and the applicant. I do have a question for staff. It's the same question I asked the applicant. If you can clarify the timeline of when that RV crash happened in the old Winchell's Donuts and then the subsequent demolition of those buildings. Ms. Mueller's presentation did just helpfully remind us that the application we're now considering was submitted to the city on February 25th of 2022. When did those collisions happen with respect to that application date?
So I did look that up a moment ago before the presentation, and it was August 15th of 2022.
Okay, so it was after this application.
Yes.
When those buildings were demolished.
The accident was on August 15th, and then the demolition permit would be shortly after that.
Got it. Okay. I have a question that's probably best directed to Ms. White, the counsel for the Quick Trip, about that. Thank you again, Ms. White. I appreciate in your presentation earlier going over some of the criteria for consistency with the comprehensive plan related to this being a growth area. Since we are looking at the criteria that were in place in 2022, I do feel that it is fair to look also at the site conditions in 2022 when there were, I believe, 4 businesses operating on the site. Right? There was an art studio, there was a sports bar, a donut shop, and a dry cleaner. And so, can you speak to how this project fulfills the comprehensive plan's goals of a growth area for an increase in number of businesses or employment when the number of businesses on the site from the standpoint of the date of application is actually decreasing from 4 to 1?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a very interesting question and a very interesting way to look at it. I think it would also be useful to fix in the timeline, and I'll ask to see if Jessica remembers the exact date, the date on which the applicant purchased the property, which I think is earlier than the date on which the accident occurred, and perhaps even earlier than the date on which the application was filed. And I would just note that sort of the general purchase and sale of property and how people make those business decisions is sort of outside of the purview of the zoning code, right, and of the of the applications. And I think it's fair to say that once the property changed hands, it was likely that the number and type of businesses on the property was going to change regardless of whether or not this application came forward and this application were approved. And that's, not something over which the zoning code really attempts to exercise any control, or the comprehensive plan. I see your point is like, hey, there used to be 4 businesses, now there's only going to be 1, but it also is a mix of different uses contained within the same business. And as I mentioned earlier, I would also venture to say that this is an extraordinary proposal for how a fuel station might interact with its surroundings and how it's being designed to be part of that 40 West Art Line. There's really, all of those businesses that were previously located there had very small footprints. And the size of this site is really, generally speaking, in the marketplace for new development, not conducive to host multiple businesses, at least based on most of the new development and redevelopment that I have seen, particularly along the Colfax corridor. So I think it's, I guess I'm saying I'm not sure it's a reasonable standard to say that this should have increased the number of businesses beyond 4, because 4 is what was there at the time that this property was purchased, even though I understand that that is one of the goals, is to increase businesses. But I would also say that some of those businesses may have closed or relocated of their own volition, regardless of what would have happened. And there's really nothing we can do about that. From our perspective, this was a vacant site at the time that, as of the time that we had to demolish the property as a result of that accident, and that would have happened regardless as well.
Yeah. So it was only the Winchell's Donut that was crashed into by the RV, I believe. Were the other 3 businesses already vacant at that point, or some other nearby point when the property was purchased?
Again, I'll ask Jessica if she remembers. I don't think they were already vacant, but I will say that the damage that occurred was not only to the Winchell's building. There was
Okay.
also significant damage to some of the infrastructure that was on the site, the parking lot, the curb. That wasn't really a proper curb, but the damage was not just to the Winchell's building.
Yeah. Ms. Glovis.
We had the property under contract for a not insignificant amount of time. I don't know exactly when, but since 2021 at some point. And so those businesses all those businesses and uses had planned to leave prior to the crash. We were letting them maintain occupancy because we hadn't gotten through this process until the crash happened. But they were all going to leave. I think they were still operating at some point.
Okay.
I don't know when they left.
But yeah, there was, like, I guess, an intention and understanding that they would have to vacate, that leases at some point probably wouldn't be renewed.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, no, that is helpful context.
Can I add?
Yeah, go ahead.
One other thing that we are doing to benefit the property, the dry cleaner, we will be cleaning all of the contamination from that dry cleaner.
No, that is good and appropriate too. Ms. Glovis, if I can ask you, how many employees will this store have, and do you know, in comparison, how many employees the previous businesses had? Because again, the comprehensive plan talks about growth and employment, right? So I've mentioned number of businesses. We are decreasing from 4 to 1, although there's some circumstances around that you've laid out some nuance there. But what about like an employee headcount, or amount of employment and amount of economic activity generated by these jobs? How does that compare before and after?
I can't give you exact numbers on how many employees they had, but they were all pretty small operations. But we have an average of 22 employees per site.
It might be useful, if I may. We have some detail about the company that we omitted from our presentation in the interest of brevity, talking about the quality of jobs. You did see that one data point about the fact that no employees have ever been laid off, but
Sure.
the sort of complete presentation about Quick Trip as a corporation includes a lot of information about how they compensate their employees, how they value employees, and how those employees have the opportunity to move up within the company. And I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit, but in prior hearings on this, that we have entered testimony talking about the fact that many of the real estate managers who are senior managers running these projects like this today started working behind the counter in a Quick Trip. That was their first job, and they worked their way up. So it's maybe a little different when you think about the quality and the type of employment compared to what may have been there previously. Is that fair? Do you want to add anything to that?
That's very fair, and I am one of those employees. I actually started as a part-time clerk in high school, working in the store, and then worked my way up through the ranks, and now I'm in real estate, and I've been with the company for 23 years.
All right. Yeah, that's very nice. And there is something to the quality of the employment. That's definitely true. So I appreciate your answers there. Nevertheless, I guess I do. I guess feel like I have to push back a little bit about your suggestion that it is generally true that the purview of zoning is not what an individual property owner wants to do. Any similarly situated entity can buy a property and use it as they wish within the property rights that they legally have that are established in the zoning ordinance. This is a special use permit application, and so there are reasons why the City Council designated in the ordinance that this requires a special use review by a planning commission. That special use in the zone district is particular only to a small number of uses, including fueling stations, and it is because there, I guess, is a sentiment there. There's a message there, just by virtue of the fact that this is a special use, that it is appropriate to designate the Planning Commission, which is the body legally designated by both state law and the city charter, to implement a comprehensive plan and oversee how that plan impacts the ongoing development of the city. That it's not necessarily automatically assured that a fueling station is a use that is as desirable and has is similarly situated to maybe other uses which are designated as uses by right. And it's not that you can't do it, it's just that the Planning Commission is designated with this task of adding some heightened scrutiny to ensure consistency with the comprehensive plan. And so it may be an unusual thing, but yeah, this application has given me a little bit of pause because of the actual decrease in the number of businesses that used to be there. And I do have to feel like for my own satisfaction, it does do a very good job of meeting the comprehensive plan, since that is one of our criteria. But you've also pointed out some of the extenuating circumstances there. And the quality of the jobs certainly does speak to me. And aside from this compliance with the comprehensive plan, I definitely agree that you meet all the other criteria that are required in the code. I guess I would just say that you took pains to point out specifically that you thought that this was a most appropriate use because it was a growth area, and it's not actually representing like that much growth, if any growth, compared to the pre 2022 condition, and so that is something I've been pondering. I don't know if I have anything more to say about it, though. Commissioners, any other questions for staff or for the applicants? All right, I'm seeing none. Thank you. You can have a seat. I appreciate your time. Since I'm seeing no more discussion at the moment, would anyone like to make a motion at this point?
Point of order, I'm wondering if it would be just like appropriate to hang tight for a minute since we're missing one commissioner.
Yeah, I believe Commissioner Overall may have stepped out for just a moment. Here she comes, though. Yeah. No worries. I did, but not that many. I was just asking the commission, would anyone like to make a motion at this point?
I move to approve the special use permit for SU 22-2 as recommended by staff.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Discussion by the commissioners. Okay, no one is indicating they wish to speak. So I will begin. I have a sense from everyone's silence that I may be alone in this opinion, but Colfax is a vital artery in our city. It is inside not just one but two growth areas. It is inside the West Colfax corridor designated growth area and the Lamar Station light rail area designated growth area, which is also in the 2025 or the plan applicable up till 2025 comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2015. It does talk about a transit-oriented development in that growth area. Of course, we can look around this site and see that there is a lot of auto-oriented development on Colfax near it, and generally we do look for compatibility with existing uses. But our plans and our zoning are aspirational and speak to the future, and what's there now speaks to what the plans were designating in the past. I just don't have a level of comfort, to me personally, that this application, despite the very positive lengths they've gone to meet compatibility with the 40 West Arts District and meet all the other requirements of the code, it demonstrates a degree of enough growth that this growth area is really demanding, and that there couldn't be some other higher and better use on this particular site in the future that would be more suitable with the vision of the comprehensive plan. So it's a very close call and a very difficult call for me, but I will be voting no for that reason. I do not believe it meets the highest vision of what the comprehensive plan that is applicable to this date of application meets in this corridor. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. Though I agree with your comments about highest and best use and something really cool could go there. Pasternak's was actually a really cool building that found itself underwater on multiple occasions because of the flood. So it wasn't really viable to stay. And having lived over there, been a board member at WCCA for some time, and I've watched a little bit of how this development has come to be and their coordination and work with the Arts District, with WCCA, and getting buy-in from the neighborhood. And though, yes, there could be something awesome that goes there one day, Colfax needs brightened up. It needs attention, and this would do that and does nod, and not just nod, it incorporates the Art Walk, which, having gone to that Art Walk on, again, multiple occasions, Lakewood Place, I think, is that back. That was not a pleasant walk from, over by Walmart, where the rest of the Arts District was, over to that section of the Art Walk. So, I mean, I see this as something that would be starting to clean it up a little bit, creating better jobs, creating that growth, activating the corner, all things that really need to happen on West Colfax. I mean, it can't stay how it is. And what was there before, I went to the dry cleaners. I never went to the bar. And we also went to Winchell's before it got crashed into. So it was, there was things that the community used, but I would not say that it was irreplaceable or necessarily great jobs. There were about 4 to 6 people working at the 2 businesses that we went to. Again, never having gone into that bar, but was not heavily frequented places. So I think it's an improvement. I think they've proven that they're meeting all of the code requirements. And so I'll be a yes vote on this one for those reasons.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I too recognize the pieces that give you pause on this. That being said, I tend to agree with Commissioner O'Neill broadly in that, one, I think the applicant has, from my perspective, shown that they do meet the requirements for the special use permit. But I would also just say, I mean, as we think about this corridor in terms of what our community wants to see from it, moving forward, there will not be, my understanding is that there will likely not be many other opportunities for a fuel station in that area, right? There's a bunch of, as we've discussed, rules around how to do that. And I tend to feel that that section of Colfax does need investment by private corporations, by community groups, and I think even probably without some of these additional pieces that the applicant has brought forward, it probably still met the threshold before that. And so I do appreciate the commitment from the applicant to make sure that it is sort of, that they are working to incorporate the vision of the community of that corridor into this property. And I hope that if we do approve this, that we can move forward with haste and it sort of can help spur additional investment in that area and in that neighborhood that really does need it. And so for those reasons, I will be voting yes.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Holman.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm also conflicted about this. I live in the neighborhood, but I don't drive, so I'll never buy gas there. But the convenience store aspect is or will be an asset to the community. And regarding your point about whether this is the best or not best use, there are a lot of vacant lots or used car dealers on Colfax in this stretch. There's like a ton of just parking spaces and cars for sale. And I don't think that this would prevent other better, maybe more aligned uses from taking advantage of those lots as they open up to the market. I think that there are a few other parcels that are for sale right now on Colfax that used to be used car dealers. So yeah, conflicted because I don't want to increase like car dependency or anything, which is partially why I asked about the bicycle parking. I would be arriving by bike, and I know many of my neighbors would too. Yeah, and I've walked this stretch many times, go to many of the businesses between that shopping center and even the bike shop just north of this location. I think generally this would be an improvement for the neighborhood, and from the neighbors I've spoken to, many of them are in support. And yeah, I mean, even just reading the comments online, the 40 West Arts District was in support, REMCAD was in support, and then someone from Two Creeks Neighborhood Organization was in support. It seems like this would be a benefit to the community overall. So yeah, I will be voting yes on this.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Commissioner Molinar?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I feel a little bit like a time traveler tonight. I'm making a decision today about something that seems like more applicable a while ago, so I also feel very conflicted about it. But I do think it indeed benefits the community enough, and since all the requirements are met, I will be voting yes.
All right. Commissioners, I'm seeing no other requests to speak. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. The motion is to approve the special use permit. A yes vote will be in favor of approving that vote. Please cast your votes. All right, and that motion carries 5 yeses and 1 no, the no being Buckley. Mr. Medina, our next agenda item, please.
Item 5, approval of minutes for the Planning Commission meeting held on July 16th, 2025.
Commissioners, is there a motion? Commissioner O'Neill.
I move to approve the minutes from that date that you just stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Please cast your votes. A yes is to approve the minutes. That passes 6 yeses and 0 nos. Mr. Medina, the next agenda item, please.
Item 6, general business.
Mr. Rice, do you have any general business for us, upcoming schedule or other activities?
At this time, we have no cases coming before the commission that I can see, at least into the first quarter of 2026. There's, how do I say this? A lot of property owners were looking at the new zoning ordinance, and some of their changes were such that they could do some projects that they were contemplating. So they need to go back and reevaluate and go through the process, and it's going to take them a couple of months if they need to come in for a rezoning request before the commission or special use. So we may see something early in 26. They may want to wait and see how the referendum process turns out as well. So I don't have anything visible. We'll come back. We're Christy, who was working with you on the comprehensive plan. She'll be back the end of December. We may have something for you related to phase 2 of the comp plan earlier, but that's kind of the initial thing that I can see for the Planning Commission.
And that would be the so-called, I guess, implementation strategy or implementation plan. The name's
Correct.
evolved a bit, but that.
Yes.
Okay, and so what action will be before the Planning Commission on that?
I think it's a general, this is coming. This is what we're planning on, clarification. This is what we plan on doing. This is when we'll come back to the commission, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of the outline of the process moving forward.
Okay. And then also coming forward, I know is a Board of Adjustment meeting, not this body, but the same exact 7 people. I believe we have an upcoming case. Can you speak to that?
We do. I ignored that one because it's not this body. That date is December 3rd,
Okay.
7 p.m.
Yeah, so that'll be in this room. Yeah.
Correct.
So yeah, the next meeting of these 7 people will be for the other body, the Board of Adjustment, for that variance case on December 3rd. Commissioner Williams, a question?
Oh, sorry. I think that was my question, was that I do believe that, I guess to use the correct language, this exact group of people will be meeting on December 3rd in this same location for a different body. Okay.
Yeah.
That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, we will be meeting as the Board of Adjustment. The members of this commission are also members of the Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment has more limited duties, mostly relating to considering variance requests, which are not that common. In fact, I think that gets to it. We have an item on the agenda next time to elect officers, because that meeting hasn't met since most of the members of this commission were seated. Yes, and I believe we also have on the agenda for the 3rd approval of minutes of the last Board of Adjustment meeting, which was in November 2022.
That's the last time they met.
Yeah, so I don't even know how many of us were on the board at that time. It might be just Commissioner O'Neill and I, or I guess Board Member O'Neill and I for that particular body. So that'll be an interesting set of minutes to approve, but somehow we'll muddle through it, I guess.
Chair?
Yeah, anything.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner Williams, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And this is a little bit of a logistical question, and perhaps this is somewhere in my email, but when will the information for that Board of Adjustment meeting is it available already?
That's available now. Apologize, Mr. Rice. Yeah, that information was uploaded today. So
great.
It's available on Lakewood Speaks now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. 2 weeks. So it's only 2 weeks out. So we
I
did
know.
it up 2 weeks prior. So it went up noonish today.
Before noon today?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that we can all be prepared. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Rice, is there anything else for the body that you have?
Not at this time. Yeah, we're kind of on pause until we know what's going on with the zoning ordinance.
All right. Commissioners, does anyone have any other general business for the good of the body that you'd like to bring up? It does not appear that we do. And so with that, it's time to adjourn this meeting at 9:11 p.m. Thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight. Good night.